You pay the tariff. The American consumer, the American businesses, this is a tax on the American people, and this is a tax on American businesses. I think there's a lot of confusion around who pays the tariff because people will say they're putting a tariff on China, they're putting a tariff on Europe, but China's not paying the tariff. The American consumer and the American businesses pay the tariff. So let me explain a little bit about how tariffs work, how they affect the cost of goods, how it affects consumers, and how it potentially can be used as a negotiating tactic during a trade war. So let me give you a hypothetical scenario so you can see how it affects you. So let's say that I'm a skincare brand that imports all of my goods from South Korea. So I manufacture in South Korea, I bring the goods in the United States, and I sell them to the American consumer. And let's say that it was originally costing me $10 per item. And then suddenly I get hit with the 25% tariff. As a business, I will suddenly have to pay $12.50 per item. $2.50 will go to the US government in the form of a tax, and then I get my $10 item. So let's say previously I was selling that good for $20, and now I'm paying $12.50 for it. There are two ways that a business can respond to tariffs. So the first thing that they can do is they can absorb the tariff into their profit and loss. They could say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to pass this on to the consumer. I'm just going to make less profit this year. Now, if you're a business with phenomenal margins, meaning that you're paying $1 for a good and you're selling it for $100, you can absorb that 25%. But most businesses don't even have a 25% profit margin. They don't even have a 10% profit margin. And in fact, a 25 or a 34% tariff would completely eliminate their profit. They would probably be losing money. So if you're like most businesses and you can't afford to absorb the tariff, then you have to pass that tariff on to the American consumer by increasing your prices. So in our hypothetical scenario, if your prices increase by $2.50, then your prices to consumers will increase by $2.50. So instead of $20, the American customer pays $22.50. So a lot of people will say, well, then why don't we just manufacture in the United States? Wouldn't that solve the problem? And we'll talk about that in a second, but it would take at least a year or longer for most businesses to switch their manufacturing, if it even made sense to switch their manufacturing, because there's a million steps to get your manufacturing right, and it would take at least a year for that to happen. So in the immediate term, a business only has two choices. They either absorb the loss or they increase their prices, and most businesses can't afford to absorb the loss, and therefore you will have to pay more for your goods. So a lot of people will say, well, these price increases will just be temporary, it's going to be fine. But this is something that nobody's talking about. During COVID, when we had supply chain issues and the prices of everything went up, those prices never went back down when it came to consumer goods. Now, if your eggs or bread or your gasoline,